Now here she looks back after Renee had moved her pretty well up the track, or at least a few yards up the track. Mark, what's Connie saying right here?
It was a little bit of in your face. There's no question about that. After last week, I think that's what that move was right there.
So Connie Young fired up here. This is the second ride in a best-of-3 series between Nelson Vales, Team Gore-Tex. There he is, strapping in and taking those leather straps over the top of his shoes and tightening up good and tight. Makes his home in Indianapolis, Indiana. Originally from Harlem, New York, bicycle messenger, Olympic silver medalist, a story well documented, and recently has become one of our favorite cameramen here on the Sundance Juice Sparkler Grand Prix. He's in the final against Paul Swift from Kenosha, Wisconsin. Just a little short automobile ride up the road. He is practically at home, you might say. And yet, in the ride against Nelson, he really didn't do very many things correctly, and Nelson was able to win pretty easily, Mark.
Well, he was a little too concerned with watching Nelson behind him and not enough with getting up to speed. And Nelson looked pretty convincing in getting over the top of him and coming around him. I'm a little, I really can't quite figure out why Paul isn't riding a little better, considering that he's ridden this track a lot, and he didn't look good against Michelle, and he didn't look good in that first ride against Nelson. I don't know, possibly he's not feeling well. I'm not sure.
Well, you've ridden against both of them. Now, you know, what's the strength and weakness we're looking at? If Nelson has a weakness that Paul could exploit, what might it be?
Well, Nelson, I think, will try and lead this one out. I think Nelson will try and control from the front and ride a good ride from the control position. Paul was able to get around in previous rides earlier in the competition. Maybe he feels that he can win it from second position, but I don't think he can.
Well, now, but now Thomas Prenn. Now Mark says he's going to try to ride from the front, but he won from the back. So what do you think here?
You know, well, Swift likes to ride from behind, and he said that. He has done a tremendous amount of racing on this track. I think that Swift really has to get to the front to win this. As convincing as Nelson Vales won the first heat, I think that Swift has to ride from the front.
You know, Paul, we've noticed a couple of things. I mean, if body language says anything, Mark, Paul has been angry with himself. He feels as though, I think, without asking him, that he's made some tactical errors here. You know, it seems as though maybe his concentration, as you mentioned, is not all 100% with us.
I think this matchup here is really what match sprinting is all about. It's two riders that are fairly closely matched in speed, that it's just a question of tactics, and I think the kind of speculating that we're doing is really what makes this event so fascinating.
And yet, you know, we've heard riders say that this is not a track that favors tactics, that it's power and speed that's going to win, and from the front.
The problem is that you can't utilize your speed on this track because the banking is so shallow. And I tend to disagree. I think that it's actually the tactics more than speed that's dictating who's winning and who's losing.
We're into the final lap. In fact, only about 2/3 of a lap to go, and yet the sprint has not really started. Nelson just beginning to wind it up. Neither rider has made a sudden acceleration or a jump. Nelson slowly, ever so slowly, now stands up out of the saddle, more to disguise a move than anything else, and begins to bring it up to full speed. Paul Swift acting patiently, times a good move on the outside, but Nelson Vales wins that drag race down the finish line, and I think, again, showed very, very good tactical move there. Nelson Vales taking 2 straight from Paul Swift and earns the bronze medal here in the Sundance Grand Prix. Very pleased he must be with that performance, showing us he's not only a cameraman of note, but a sprinter as well, Thomas.
That's right. That probably is one of the slowest sprints that we've actually seen. As far as time, 200 meters, it was 13.92, and I could probably actually do that right now.
Let's take another look at it. Here's Nelson. Mark Gorski, tell us what's going on. He looks back over his shoulder one time and then heads for the bottom.
Well, they rolled extremely slow into 200 meters to go, and Nelson just really jumped first, and there was no way that Paul could make up that kind of gap with only 150 meters to go, although he came pretty close. But Nelson does have a great jump.
So that's a view from the backstretch of Nelson Vales crossing the finish line. 2 straight, wins the bronze medal here in Chicago, or Northbrook more correctly, Sundance Juice Sparkler Grand Prix. 3rd place is over. Nelson Vales takes it. Our next event on the track is the women's Miss and Out final here, an unusual kind of race that many of you may have seen before on our telecasts. If not, we're going to tell you how it works. It's a race of attrition. The last rider across the line is pulled out on each lap. They go down to 3 riders, and then there's a neutral lap, a bell, and a sprint for first, second, and third. So we have to watch the back of the field for a while, Thomas Pren. And here is the field that's getting set for this race. As they await the start of the race, Renee Duprell, match sprint specialist for the Weight Watchers team. Janie Eichhoff, currently the overall leader in the Sundance Series, and the rest of the group there, including Mindy Mayfield, all Team Lycra, obviously with a numeric advantage in this race. There's Mindy Mayfield sitting up, getting ready for the start. Thomas Pren and Mark Gorski up here in the booth with us, so we've got this thing covered like a blanket, gentlemen. Let's wait and watch and see what's going on. And our viewpoint is going to come from Nelson Vales, the rocket man he looks like down there, with a camera on his left ear, a microphone, and a microwave transmitter that'll be sending the picture from his helmet camera to us up here, and that's what it looks like as they get ready and roll off from the start. Remember, it's a race of elimination. The last rider across the line is withdrawn on each lap. They have a neutral rolling lap start. A small field, but a quality field, Thomas.
That's right, and this is really where Janie Eichhoff has been winning a lot of her points for the overall competition. And this is, again, where some of these other women have an opportunity to win some points. It's a small field, good quality field, and a good opportunity to win points.
Now, Mark, the team tactics might come into play. We've got a couple of riders for Weight Watchers, 3 for Team Lycra, and a little bit of team tactics, but in a field this small, I'd have to say it might be minimal.
Yeah, it's going to be Team Sundance versus Team Lycra here with Karen Bliss and Lucy Tyler. Very strong women for Team Sundance, and Janie Eichhoff and Mindy Mayfield working for Team Lycra, I think.
So the Team Lycra riders are the ones with the yellow stripe on the black shorts, and up front they've got a couple of their riders, and it's Jane Eichhoff who's leading it on the outside there. On the inside, it's Mindy Mayfield, very strong pursuit rider. They're staying out of trouble up near the front of the field. And it's at the back that you have to watch for it. The pink jersey of Renee Duprell, way on the outside of Nelson Vale's camera shot there, is the one in trouble. No, it isn't. It's number 33, I believe, coming out of there. Susan Lawley from Houston, Texas, who is the first rider withdrawn, also in a pink jersey. Down the backstretch, Nelson Vales and his lime green Gore-Tex team outfit is on the furthest to the right. And 7 riders left in the race. Last rider across the line, rear wheel of the last rider, it's important to note, is the one who comes out of there. Let's see who it's going to be this time. Lori O'Neill in a little bit of trouble at the back, and it is number 29, Lori O'Neill. One of the Team Lycra riders is out of there. It's 2 against 2 now for Sundance versus Lycra, if that's our matchup, Thomas.
Yeah, and also on a larger track like this, you know, the riders don't, I mean, they come out 1 per lap, but, you know, longer laps. You can't sit at the front and lead as much as you would on the shorter velodrome.
Now, there on the outside, number 49 is Lucy Tyler of the Sundance team. Now, she's got to try to get around just one other rider. She does so. She comes now way on the outside left, and down at the bottom, the rider in trouble. And it's number
48,
Karen Bliss of the Sundance Youth Sparkler team. Karen crashed about a month ago and is trying to come back from a couple of successive crashes. Mark, that's got to hurt.
It really does. I think she's doing real well. She kind of just got caught on the inside looking around in that one. There was an interesting battle going on in the last lap between Renee Duprell and Lucy Tyler. Renee's kind of playing the sprinter at the back the last couple laps here.
Now, Nelson Vales has also got a microphone on down there as we see who the next rider coming out. And number 49, Lucy Tyler, who was in there before, now comes out. We're down to 4 riders. And Nelson Vales is trying to take a look at who looks good out there, Nelson. Renee Duprell right in front of you. 2 Team Lycra riders. What's your pick?
You can hear me. Renee's looking real strong. Picking riders off every lap. And I think Barbara's going to get it.
So Renee Duprell, thanks a lot, Nelson. Renee Duprell goes around the outside. There she is in pink. And down at the bottom of the track, her victim was Barbara Gradley, number 101. And so playing the devil, Renee Duprell, normally a sprint specialist, has been able to stay in against 2 Team Lycra riders out there. We're in the neutral lap, and it'll be a sprint for first, second, and third. And, Mark, I think that plays right into Renee's hands.
Well, what's going to be very interesting is how Mindy and Janie can work together against Renee. If they play it smart, Janie can back off Renee, let Mindy go for it, establish a gap, and then Janie and Renee sprint for second.
Now, Janie Eichhoff is directly in front of Renee Duprell right now, and Mindy Mayfield is the lead rider of the 3. So right now, they're all pretty much stuck right together in the final lap. Nelson Vales following the three of them around the track, still with that helmet camera shot there that we cut to every once in a while. Renee Duprell takes matters into her own hands, doesn't want to get backed off by anybody, and goes straight to the front. Renee Duprell, Team Weight Watchers, was picking them off one at a time. We're looking right now at number 32, Mindy Mayfield, who's third, and Renee Duprell takes the women's missing out final just ahead of Jane Eichhoff. So the team tactics didn't work. And
Janie and Mindy both were asleep on the backstretch. I don't know quite what they were doing, but Renee just went right over the top.
Let's take another look at exactly what happened. Here's where they could have executed a 2-against-1 move, but Renee Duprell jumped right around the outside of Mindy Mayfield, and then young Janie Eichhoff is trying to catch the wheel and make a move, but in the last couple of 100 meters, I don't think it's going to happen.
No,
it
there's
didn't.
no way.
It looked as though there really wasn't, there was some indecision by the Team Leica riders.
I don't think they were really working together.
No, it looked like they really didn't have a plan going into it, and Mindy Mayfield just...
takes it away. Mindy Mayfield taking third, and Renee Duprell wins the Missing Out final here in Northbrook. We'll be right back with more Sundance Cycling on ESPN. And Michelle Vartan of Weedy Schwinn. This hand, that might be a little conservative on Kurt Harnett. He's a big man. And Michelle Vartan, while not as physically big and impressive, is nevertheless a very intimidating man and a very, very experienced bicycle racer. World champion in the Keirin and a medalist in the World Championships as an amateur in the match sprints quite some years ago. He's been around for a while.
Well, I picked that last one. I said Michelle Vartan, and I'm not going to make any predictions on this one.
Okay, Thomas. Well, you sit down, and Mark Gorski comes to the front now to give us the inside word. Now, you've ridden against Kurt Harnett, trained with Kurt. You're very familiar with him, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, more of an observer of Michelle Vartan. But he really, you know, if you have to watch somebody, he's somebody impressive to watch.
Well, there's a lot to learn from Michelle in terms of the way he sprints and the way he utilizes the speed that he does and gets the most out of his speed. But he isn't truly a match sprinter. He is a Keirin specialist. And Kurt, I don't think Kurt wants to hang around for a third ride, to tell you the truth, in this cold weather. I think he'd like to get it over with in 2 straight.
So Vartan is kind of a 400-meter man in a 100-meter event. He's got almost as much speed as he needs, but because he doesn't train specifically for this, he's really at a little bit of a deficit in terms of pure speed. But tactics, I don't think he suffers to anyone in terms of tactical ability. Harnett leading it now into the first turn, big round turn. And now to the backstretch. Vartan goes to the front. That's the control position that he lost to Harnett last time. Harnett jumped him right about there. This time, Vartan's not going to let it happen. He leads it down the backstretch and now into the turn. Kurt Harnett's got to go the longer way around. Vartan trying to hold him off on the inside. But there's the speed of Kurt Harnett, who powers across the line to take it from behind by a half a bike length. And Michelle Vartan congratulating the obviously superior match sprinter for a well-deserved victory, 2 straight rides. Gold medal to Kurt Harnett, Canada's golden sprinter. Let's take another look at it from the backstretch, as this gives us a little bit of a different angle here on the backstretch.
Michelle made a good move underneath. He did what he had to do and what he wanted to do and get in front of Kurt and try and control him. He had him in the position exactly as he wanted. He didn't have the speed to hold off Kurt down the home straight.
Well, keep in mind that he rode a match sprint, went right into the Keirin and back into the match sprint, all within just a very short span of time. So Michelle Vartan here winning the drag race for the moment as they go well into the turn, and Harnett just starts steaming around the outside, Thomas, and takes it.
Yeah, you can see that Kurt really has the superior speed right there. Michelle Vartan, he kept looking back, and when a rider starts looking back, you know that he's in trouble.
So there he is, Kurt Harnett, Thunder Bay, Ontario, for the 3rd week in a row, takes gold in the Sundance Juice Sparkler Grand Prix.
Sean Wallace made his mark on the Sundance Tour last year, dominating a number of events, including the individual pursuit. Along with Mike McCarthy, Steve Haig, and others, Wallace formed the nucleus of the successful Sunkyung cycling team, but the team disbanded to concentrate on road events.
Good for the Sunkyung team last year, and things went very well with that. I enjoyed it. But this year they had a bit of a switch in their program. They've headed strictly towards stage racing. and so they formed their team based on that. Schwinn were looking for a track and criterium rider, and I fitted the bill.
And his new team has welcomed him. With the addition of Wallace, Weedy Schwinn has become a force on the Sundance Tour. And though he gets support from his team, it's up to Sean to train himself.
Because you pretty much your own boss as far as your training goes and stuff like that. You know, I was happy with Sungkyung. I'm very happy with Weedy Schwinn as well. They're both fine firms. You know, they get great bikes and things like that. So, and good support. So obviously I'm very, very happy to be with this team.
Wallace has continued to excel this year, finishing in the money in many events, moving him high up in the Grand Prix points list. Even with his success, he stays hungry.
This year, to be as successful as last year on the Sundance Series, I think last year I won probably more races than anyone in the series, and I hope to go and do that again. Hit the tracks throughout the States and just keep cleaning up.
At the Meadow Hill Park Velodrome, just outside Chicago, this is what it looked like in the men's pursuit final. Sean Wallace of the Weedy Schwinn team and Chicago, Illinois' Matt Chambers met in this 4,000-meter event and had a seesaw battle in the early going on. But with a lap to go, the speedster from Southampton, England began to take control. In the final turn, he carried a half-second lead and began to really open it up. His margin of victory was substantial, and Sean Wallace added another title. He won the kilometer here. He set a track record in that event, and this former world record holder takes the pursuit title in the Sundance Grand Prix of Chicago. Anchorman, and then the final rider races against the opponent for the win.
Well, the coach for each of these teams has selected the riders in order of their sprinting ability to and endurance ability. So the first rider for each team was the true sprinter, moving to a kilometer type rider, and then the last couple riders are pursuit type riders who've got the endurance to last to the last lap, essentially, after 4 or 5 riders have already ridden.
Now, Matt Chambers for Team Lycra there swings off up the track. And now Team Lycra's got their 4 regular members in there. Here's Weedy Schwinn with its 4 regular members on the track. Up front, it's Michelle Vartan leading it out, 4 against 4 right now. We started off 6 against 6, and the Weedy Schwinn team has got the advantage. Gibby Hatton started them off, and Kurt Harnett started off Team Lycra. Now they're down to 3. And it looks like Team Lycra is starting to fight back. They are a legitimate pursuit team training for the national championships to represent the United States in that event in the Worlds.
Team Lycra actually has the advantage right now. It looks like Nick Thomas on the front and Tom Armstrong on the front for Weedy Schwinn. It's going to come down to a Wallace versus Bobby Livingston battle, it looks like.
So that's the anchor leg. Sean Wallace of Great Britain and Bobby Livingston from Atlanta, Georgia are the anchor men. They're down to 2 against 2, and Team Lycra very definitely with the advantage, probably about 10 bike lengths. The way you can tell is in the middle of the straightaways, right there. Team Lycra crosses its line, and just now, as we look outside the monitor, we see Weedy Schwinn starting to try to fight back. Now, Sean Wallace goes through early. Here's Team Lycra. They're still 2 men. Sean Wallace has already gone around his leadout man. Livingston against Wallace, and Wallace has really poured on the coals. They're in the final lap of the race, and Sean Wallace is really trying to fight it back and get even, Thomas Friend. It's going to be close, a half lap to go.
Well, it's going to be very close, and Sean Wallace decided to take off on his own, and he wasn't going to wait. But we've got Bobby Livingston and Sean Wallace.
And I think Wallace has pulled ahead. A good tactical move by a pursuit rider. Bobby Livingston, more of a kilometer specialist, and it's going to be very, very difficult to call on that one. Virtually dead even.
I think that was the Schwinn-Wheaties team. I think they've got that one.
Wallace brought back at least a 2-second deficit in the last lap and a half. That was a pretty incredible pull that he made, coming through early and taking the last lap and a half, essentially, to the finish line.
Well, the crowd enjoyed that tactical move, and Sean Wallace brings home the victory for the Weedy Schwinn team, capping a fine performance by that entire group here. And while the weather didn't really cooperate with us here, we had some great racing nevertheless after a little bit of a delay. And in the men's sprints, Mark Gorski, Kurt Harnett had a different opponent, but produced the same result, a gold medal.
Well, Kurt has so much speed right now, it's very difficult to beat him. Michelle is a very intimidating rider, gave him a good run for his money, but again, speed won out.
And in the women's side, Connie Young, 4 for 4 thus far in the Sundance Grand Prix. She looks unbeatable so far.
Well, we were anticipating the rematch between her and Renee, but once again, she's just faster and more experienced, and again, she came out on top.
Now, in the Kieran event, we had a couple of newcomers, Thomas Pren, and I think a portent of things to come. Gibby Hatton and Michelle Vartan, pretty intimidating.
That's right. They really just showed that they know how to ride these events. Before, it was Team Lycra trying to really dominate the event. And now in the Kieran, we see Michelle Vartan and Gibby Hatton from the Wheaties Schwinn team really taking over.
So that just tells us we've got a lot of good racing coming up yet this season. Those are some of the races that we saw. Let's take a look at the results of all of the races here thus far. In the women's sprints, Connie Young, Renee Duprell, Janie Eickhoff, a youngster, and the debut of Bonnie Blair, Olympic skating champion, was very impressive indeed. She's got a ways to go, but she looked good in her debut. On the men's side, Harnett and Vartan in the gold medal final. Nelson Vales making his appearance there for the bronze against Paul Swift, and he made it good. On the women's pursuit, Mindy Mayfield and Katie Horton. Mindy Mayfield getting a walkover, and in the third and fourth place, Lucy Tyler and Janie Eickhoff, a good race with Lucy Tyler getting the win there. On the men's pursuit side, Sean Wallace continues his performance in the pursuit over Matt Chambers from right here in Chicago. Thomas Craven of Wheaties Schwinn pulled off third against Aaron Hartwell of Team Lycra. That battle continues between those two teams. In the women's missing out, we had Renee Duprell, who picked up a victory, not in the sprint, but in the missing out. Janie Eickhoff continues her all-around ability. Mindy Mayfield, yet another medal. And in the Kieran event, a wild affair with two of the best in the world, showing us why. Michelle Vartan, Gibby Hatton, Brian McDonough of Team Lycra could get no better than third. So that's the way it's stacked up here in the results, and on a cold and windy day, we're trying to create the illusion of staying warm with some hot, hot racing. Now, we look forward to Indianapolis next time around, your hometown, and your last race really as a hometown guy, I guess, moving to California.
That's right. I really don't want to be here in the booth for that one. I'll look forward to being in the finals of that event and then moving on to California. But Indianapolis has been a great place, and the racing should be good.
Almost 90 years ago, Major Taylor dominated track cycling at a time when the sport had reached its zenith in popularity. Through his determination and athletic prowess, he became not only a beacon of hope and inspiration for black athletes, but also one of cycling's legends. And today, it's from the velodrome that Taylor's hometown of Indianapolis named in his honor that we bring you the Sundance Grand Prix of Cycling on ESPN. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Drebber, and working with me, as always, is Thomas Pren. And what we have in store for you today is a real mixed bag of cycling, athletics, and entertainment. The Grand Prix of Cycling, sponsored by Sundance, is a real entertaining mix of different kinds of events, and the riders that ride in them are also a blend of talents.
Well, that's right. You have some specialists, sprint specialists, and then you have all-around riders. And really, the overall series is points from every single different event. So in the overall, it's definitely going to be a rider who is riding a lot of different events is going to be winning the most points.
Let's take a look at the standings in the men's division. First of all, we have Sean Wallace, a rider who rides everything, the kilometer time trial, missing out, pursuit, everything but the match sprints. He's on top. Down in fifth spot, Kurt Harnett, a match sprint specialist, can only manage fifth best placing here. And on the women's side, the same situation. Janie Eickhoff, an all-rounder. There isn't anything she doesn't ride. Renee Duprell, primarily a sprinter, is in second spot, although she does ride a few of the other events. Connie Young, only the match sprints. She's fourth. Now, on today's events, we have match sprints. That's one of the features. And in the women's division, we have Connie Young again in her specialty facing Julie Spade of Australia.
It's going to be a really tough one for Julie to do anything. Connie Young has just been so dominant in the competition. She is really riding this almost as training. Every single event, she just takes it as a different training match.
Now, on the men's side, we have Kurt Harnett, the man who has really been dominant thus far in the men's division, and Steve Phillips of Coors Light gets into the gold medal final for the first time.
It's really exciting to see Steve Phillips in this final event, and I'd like to see him do something really exciting. I think he knows he has to do something creative to beat Kurt Harnett.
Now, one of the other Olympic-style events we have are the pursuits, and in the women's side, Lucy Tyler and Mindy Mayfield, teammates, face each other. But on the men's side, we have Sean Wallace from Great Britain, Wheaties Schwinn, and Mindaugas Umaras of the Soviet national team, an Olympian.
Right, Sean Wallace has his workout cut out for him here because any time the Soviet riders come to an international competition, it's a matter of national pride that they win the event. So he really is going to be going very hard on this.
So we've got all that and more for you, and the more includes the Kieran event, and this is going to be a wild one here today. The Kieran final featuring some new faces and always lots of action. Stay with us, folks. The Sundance Juice Sparkler Grand Prix of Cycling on ESPN is coming at you. Third of a kilometer around the track, a beautiful facility that has been used not only for the Olympic trials, but for the Pan American Games in what many people have said is the capital of amateur sports athletics. 72 degrees, not much wind, low humidity, good conditions under somewhat cloudy skies. It really favors everyone who's racing here today, Thomas Pren.
Beautiful conditions for riders out here today because it's just it's not too hot, not too humid, and they can put in some fast times and ride very hard and not be affected by the heat.
On the track right now, the first ride in the women's match sprint final for the gold medal. And who else but Connie Young at the front, riding for the Sundance Juice Sparkler team. And her competition, Julie Spate from Australia, the Australian national champion. This is third and fifth place from the Olympic Games in Seoul, Korea, on the track together right now.
Now, Connie Young had a chance to go to Europe, and she could be off racing in Europe at this time, but she chose to stay here in the United States. And the reason she did that is because she doesn't feel that riding in Europe, even though it's the international competition, it's good for her form and for her fitness.
A lot of times the travel, you're a veteran of international travel, the traveling takes more out of you than the competition puts in.
Right. She just didn't feel it's worth it. You know, she can go over there and race against the best in the, some of the best in the world. Well, in fact, she is one of the best in the world, but she chose not to do it and just to stay here. In fact, this weekend she loves it because it's really just racing at her hometown track, and so she doesn't even need to travel.
She makes her home here in Indianapolis. She's originally from Detroit. Former skater, Olympic speed skater, we might add, and one of the many athletes in cycling that uses skating or has in the past used skating as a crossover sport. Julie Spate now taking the front position after that obligatory first lap led by Connie Young. Julie Spate goes to the front. Connie pulling up to a stop or a slowdown and forcing the Australian to the front. Now, Julie is still suffering from an injury. We've belabored the point about how she had a terrible crash in Australia. She broke her collarbone. It's pinned together with a plate of titanium and 6 screws. Normally injuries, you recover from injuries, but this is a particularly debilitating one for her.
It is particularly debilitating for a track sprinter because they require that they pull on their handlebars so hard at the start of that sprint. And what that means for Julie is that she doesn't have the acceleration that she would normally have if she was at 100%, because she just can't pull on the bars.
1 lap to go, the bell signifying the final lap of the race. Julie Spate wearing number 2, Connie Young wearing number 1. Maybe a portent of things to come as Connie Young starts a jump down the backstretch and goes easily past Julie Spate from the rear position and begins to open a gap. Now, Julie is trying to answer. Here's where the acceleration is what she would need, but she just does not have it. Not against Connie Young. Time of 12:21 is pretty fast, but way too fast for Julie Spate. Connie Young winning the first ride in the gold medal final. Let's take another look at it. Fast move by Connie on the backstretch.
And you can just see how much more that Connie Young is using her upper body to accelerate. You can see that Julie just cannot use her upper body to accelerate. And this is really, as you said, the time was pretty fast. And coming around, she's not being pushed by anyone. She's just, at this point, just riding.
So Connie Young rides away from Julie Spate on this first ride and leads 1-0 in the final for the gold medal in the women's match sprint. The riders are drawing for their position in the first match sprint for the gold medal in the Sundance Juice Sparkler Grand Prix, reaching into a bag with golf balls, and here's the match. Kurt Harnett, say no more. He is the man who has been doing the job in the match sprint. And Steve Phillips of Coors Light, Houston, Texas, relative newcomer to the sport, has been nudging his way up into the standings and is for the first time in the gold medal final. On the track, there's Kurt Harnett from Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. Team Lycra. Strapping himself in and getting ready to do battle. 1988 Olympian in the kilometer and sprint. He won a silver medal in 1984 in the kilometer time trial. 1,000 meters against the clock, but this year he says no more kilometer time trial. It's match sprinting all the way. And with one exception in the Sundance Grand Prix, he has been the gold medalist. Steve Phillips, born in Greenville, South Carolina, but now makes his home in Houston, Texas, where we had our first Sundance Grand Prix. 6'1", 210 pounds, started racing in 1986, so he's only in his third year actively competing. North Carolina champion, and his best result, a bronze medal so far. One bronze medal last year and another one this year in the Sundance Grand Prix. They get set to go.
You can really see how Steve Phillips is concentrating on this, and he has to, because he has to do everything right to beat Kurt. And in fact, it really may even come down to Kurt making a mistake, and that could be the only way he can get this.
I think that's a good point, but match sprinting, you know, is really forcing your opponent to make more mistakes than you do. I think that's one way of looking at it. You can do 100 things right and 99 things wrong in 3 laps and still win. Kurt Harnett, there's Steve Phillips, both big men, about the same size, well-muscled. Steve Phillips, a former swimmer, really trains on his own. On the other hand, Kurt Harnett, coached by Roger Young, who is one of the best coaches in the game today, especially for sprinters. Steve Phillips, a newcomer to the sport. What does he have to do against Kurt Harnett to win?
Kurt is a hard guy to ride because he's very strong from the front, but he's also really quick coming from the wheel. So ride from the front or the back, it really is